The pirates. The room opposite of the dilapidated lab is a large storage closet with rows upon rows of expired chemicals. Unfortunately, while they can translate the language being used, it's six-tongue a classical lidrous language like Latin is on Earth. Every chemical expired sometime last century and is under an abbreviation that the scientists no doubt found useful, but just confuses the men. So they go down to the next set of doors and check the left one again. A bathroom. A lidrous scale bathroom, so there's a collection of sinks with mirrors about twice as high as a man stands, and the toilet is gigantic to say the least. There are also what look like pressure washers in the sides. Whether it's for cleaning the main body or doing the business of a bidet, none of the men question and they head to the next room. It's another lab. Interestingly, this one seems to have had several experiments or chemical synthesizations abandoned partway through. There are several beakers on burners that have been kept burning hot due to axiom use and long destroyed whatever the contents were. Miles taps the deactivation keys on them and they turn off without a fuss, proving the equipment still works despite being ancient. What happened here? Something must have drawn their attention away, and they never came back, Franklin says as he gives the room another look over. I'm not seeing any damage, so whoever left those running must have thought they were coming back, then didn't. More dead chemicals? Jake says, opening a cabinet and examining the internal shelves. Bit of damage on the edge here, not sure from what. Something to look into later. Our priority is to find out where the entrances and exits of this place are, so it can be given a proper look through, Miles says, and there are nods. Still, this is another piece of the puzzle, Franklin notes. That's second priority, Miles reminds him. I know, I'm just saying that it's a clearer picture. They were studying extinct animals in fetal form and did so cut off from the main axiom flows of the world. They also refined chemicals, again surrounded by tritite, to prevent outside axiom from influencing them. The question is, if they were doing this in a tritite cage to hide their experiments or to isolate them for purer results. Both is an option too, or hell, it may have simply been the best material at the time. Tritite isn't the strongest material, but it alloys very well with other metals and is comparatively cheap. Jake reminds him and Franklin nods. Right, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Franklin agrees. 2 more sets of doors and then the stairs. Move out, men. Miles orders and they leave the secondary lab to head to the next left side door. Oh, that is creepy as fuck, Jake remarks as they check the next room and find a mass animal fetus storage area. One of the jars has smashed on the ground and the stain is worked into the floor with the tiny body having effectively mummified in the air. Tell me I'm not the only one seeing a pattern, Franklin asks as he scans the shelves. What pattern? Has anyone spotted an insect, avian, or mammal? It's nothing but serpents, reptiles, amphibians, and fish from what I can tell, Franklin says, and both other men glance at each other and scan the shelves. Nada, Jake replies. Nothing. As you said, fish, snakes, lizards, frogs, and that's about all, Miles says. And what does the lidrous evolve from? Franklin asks. Reptiles. They're amphibious reptiles with serpentine features. So they have fish, snakes, lizards, and frogs in the family tree? Jake asks before pinching the bridge of his nose. Have we stumbled onto some kind of bonkers genetics lab? Maybe. Possibly pharmaceutical. Like using chimps or rats to test human medicine. Miles answers. Then why would they have an extinct species of sea serpent in bulk? There's 2 entire rows of the bastards right here, Franklin remarks as he points at just that. I don't know. This is plenty weird though. It also makes finding that proper doorway all the more important, Miles remarks, and Franklin nods as he steps back away from the shelves. All right, next room, Franklin says, and the floppy test dummy is used to open the next door. With this one, there's a massive puff of dust and a rank stink from the next room. All 3 men are overcome with coughs as Miles pulls out a scanner and runs it over. Nothing deadly, at least not in these quantities. A touch of hydrogen sulfide though, that's the fart smell, Miles remarks. Fart nothing. It smells like a cow died in there, Jake says, gagging a bit as Franklin finishes opening the door. The light from the hallway illuminates a massive figure slumped in the darkness. Light from Franklin's axiom abilities reveals an ancient and effectively mummified lidrous corpse. Miles scans the room, for other entrances and exits and sees nothing but a badly wrecked room. The Lidris inside clearly fought something. Jake scans the body to determine cause of death. Franklin finds himself staring at the Lidris as a whole. "We need to," Miles begins. "That scale pattern and the frills match the serpents." Franklin cuts him off, pointing at the body in a bit of a daze. His mind is racing in so many directions he can barely understand his own thoughts. Miles and Jake look again and think for a moment. "I couldn't find any visible injuries," Jake says slowly as Franklin walks in and looks closer. "This is it exactly. I don't think there's a Lidris ethnicity that matches this," Franklin says, staring at the places where the main body and the secondary bodies come together. "Look at this. The scale pattern shifts dramatically here. We need to get a doctor in here," Miles says. "She's dead, Jim." Franklin answers in a sarcastic tone. "You know what I mean and why." Miles snaps. "Yes, fair enough. But this is so far after the fact, I'm not sure whether an architect or archaeologist is better suited for examining the structure of this place," Franklin concedes. Axiom pulses around him for a moment, and he nods to himself. "I think this was a medical room. But why was she in one to begin with? Was she taking a nap and something happened? Was there damage on the body? Like I said, no visible injuries, but a strange configuration to the larger lower body, and it does not match up with the upper bodies," Franklin says as he leans closer again. "I can't see anything like a surgical scar or something." Miles considers and he steps into the room a bit more before a slight shape under the dust catches his attention. He crouches down and blows some dust off a small Kutha panel. His right eyebrow crawls up and he sucks in a breath between his teeth as he recognizes it. "What is it?" Jake asks, stepping behind him and looking down. "Is that part of a retention basin?" Franklin asks, crouching down to his level. "Looks like it," Miles confirms before glancing at Franklin. "I know you won't be giving your best unless you can at least think about it. So spit it out. What's your theory?" Franklin stands up as he exhales and then inhales deeply in thought. Dead Lidris in an abandoned Axiom secluded laboratory. No visible injuries. Lidris's lower body does not match up with secondary bodies, but there is no sign of being unhealthy beyond being dead. The room was sealed, but not locked. Sealed in such a way that the air itself was trapped inside. This is unlike the other rooms. The lower body matches local extinct fauna. Clear chemical labs. Evidence of a healing coma being used. Evidence of violence in the room. "Experiment gone wrong?" Jake asks, and Franklin nods. "I think so, too. I think this Lidris was their first-person test or jumped ahead of testing and tested on herself. Either way, they were looking to incorporate the serpent's traits into themselves. They did something wrong, and the healing coma they tried to use to either dodge the consequences of their actions, or as part of the experiment, cause the alteration to really hit, and it just didn't line up. Maybe the veins and nerves are in the wrong place. Maybe the blood in the body attacked the brains as a foreign agent. Whatever happened, this person was mutated or mutating themselves, and it went very, very wrong. Which is very, very illegal," Miles says. "And that would be as good a reason as any other to abandon this place." Jake remarks, "Out in the galactic boonies, or not that kind of bad behavior gets punished." "Control? This is Miles," Miles says into his headpiece. "Control here, go ahead. From what we've discovered so far, this is an abandoned genetics lab. We found a body, Lidris female, adult. Dead from what seems to be a genetic experiment gone wrong in such a way that it caused a healing coma to finish her off rather than heal her," Miles reports. "What about the entrance to that place?" "Nothing on that end yet, but we've cleared at least half, if not all, of this first level. We're heading to the next one now," Miles says. "Confirmed. Stay in touch, big man." Control replies, "All right, gents, we're dawdling enough. Let's get back to moving." Miles says, and all three men start moving again, with the dummy floating ahead of them all by about 6 paces. No traps go off and they enter a large room that seems like a multi-story stairwell, scaled for giants. "Lidris, you're never winning a wrestling match with them." "Huh." Jake snorts in amusement at Miles's caustic tone. "There's a gap between the levels of the stairs easily big enough for us," Franklin says, leaning out and looking up, then down. He conjures a pair of axiom balls and sends one up and the other down. We got 3 levels under us and 1 above. We're going up first, Miles says, and Franklin nods before grabbing the dummy and throwing it up and through the gap. A twist of his wrist and all 3 men hear it crash to the floor a level above them. Did you have to do it that way? What? Franklin asks, and Miles just gives out a groan, even as the other man starts floating into the air. Those steps come up to shoulder level. Jake notes as he examines the stairs going up. It's going to be annoying to get up to the next level. That's why we're flying. Full-grown Lidris are huge, and a place built to their standards is just as stupid big, Franklin says as he floats into the center of the stairwell and looks clean up with a nod. He's got a clear shot. Speak of, why are the handles to the doors so low to the ground then? Nothing else in this place is following galactic building code for making it accessible for all races. So why are the doors? Jake asks. Mass manufacture maybe? Miles asks. Either way, let's go. Lift off. Franklin gestures with both hands, and both Jake and Miles start gently floating up with him. All 3 men are carried up to the next level, and they duck under the tall railing and step out onto the floor. The crumpled dummy is waiting for them, and at a gesture it stands up and is hurled through the open doorway into the dark hall beyond. The only sound is the pratfalls of the oversized doll as nothing reacts to its presence. It takes a bit to find the light switch this time, but the hallway illuminates the same as the one below. Another 7 rooms, just like the level below. Miles notes to Control as he places a signal beacon on the railing to the stairwell and activates a magnet on it to keep it there. We'll check the room at the end. It might be a computer room like the other one, but it might be an entrance too. Copy that. Your signal is still strong. Keep going, boys. Control says. Got it. I thought it, Miles says, and the 3 mice in there start heading down the hallway. The dummy opens the door and, more computers. Who wants to bet that this floor is exactly the same as the one below it? Franklin asks as they step into a room identical to the one they entered the complex by, minus the gaping hole in the wall, of course. Down to the dead body and fetuses in jars? Jake asks, and everyone pauses at that as the idea that it might actually be like that crosses all their minds. The first room they check is the one directly above the room with the corpse below. A gasp of the now familiar hydrogen sulfide and corpse smell blows past all of them as the doors open, and another mummified Lidris body is lying in wait for them. Son of a bitch, Miles mutters. I should have put money on that bet, Franklin mutters, and Jake just gives him a look.